You are now watching Believe. Do you
What
believe?
is up, y'all? Here we are for another episode of Believe in Kentucky. We got AG Aaron Gershon does his thing at the Cat's Paws. Say the like the Ohio State people. The Cat's Paws. Got the QB, Jalen Whitlow, former UK QB, man. Fellas, how's everybody doing?
Better than Kentucky football right now, I think.
Ooh.
It was a lethargic game Saturday night. Obviously, a lot to break down there, but it's hard to put into words what we saw on Saturday. I know Will Levis was out, and that shake them up a little bit, but man, you got to play a lot better around a guy who's never started a college game before.
Yeah, I'm good, man. Kind of the same thing. I think that game kind of, set them back a little bit. Unfortunately, with the momentum they had going, you can get over. The Ole Miss was one thing, but that one was a decent setback. So, but I'm good, man. Ready to see if they bounce back this Saturday against a good Mississippi State team that's going to throw the ball a lot, but they also, have changed some things and they run the ball more now. So it's going to be exciting to see how the defense does. That's what I want to see really. But yeah, man, ready to see what happens.
Yeah, yes. Coach Stoops been saying it every press conference, every opportunity. Another good team coming in here. Nobody's gonna feel sorry for us. Both are true, and
Mm-hmm.
Ole Miss is gonna come in and well, look, they know they have won in Lexington in forever. They want to get that monkey off their back just as much as Kentucky wants to win in Starkville. Uh, they have a good team, like Jalen said. They're ranked and exceeding expectations from media day. Nobody saw them kind of doing what they're doing. I don't think.
Yeah, they were picked to finish sixth in the West. You're exactly
Mhm.
right.
Yeah, so it's gonna be it's gonna be tough. It's gonna be tough. I know Will Levis. Look, Will Levis covers a multitude of issues. We know this. I know he was 76% of the offense. I knew that. I still thought they had enough at other positions and
They
where
did.
the roster is constructed, had enough to handle South Carolina and still a win without him. Keep it simple, pound C Rod, play lights out defensively, and just kind of smother South Carolina and Rattler, and you grind out this win over Carolina. Uh, the you text us, Aaron, that you said they're kind of done, and I was like, nah, they'll be all
I
right.
know.
And no, they weren't all right.
Nah, man, you could tell. And, JJ Weaver even admitted after the game that there was a lack of energy. And a lot of that, he said, at least from the offense, he said the offense lacked energy because Will Levis was out. And obviously, yeah, it's hard to overcome in an SEC game, even though I still think Kentucky had the better roster, even without Will on Saturday. It's hard to overcome not having a star quarterback. I get it. But it's not an excuse because they didn't play well or coach well against around Kaya Shuren. Did Kaya Shuren play a great game? No. Was he awful? I didn't think so. I thought he made a couple of good throws when he had the chance. He was able to show some moxie on that touchdown to Dingle with a play fake. I mean, he did a couple things pretty well, but man, when you have three or four drops or balls that go off guys' fingertips, Barryon Brown and Dane Key both had one. The fumble with the trick play, which was just we'll break that down, I'm sure. A horrendous play called to start a game. And really, you go into halftime, you're still tied at 7. And obviously, again, another thing we'll break down is how bad the defense was in the second half. But you go into halftime down, tied at 7. You get the ball back just down 7 in the second half, and you just abandon the only thing that was working, which was the run. I think this is finally the week we can have a conversation on some of the issues going on with the offense coordinator.
I mean, yeah.
I hate to be this negative, but what else is there to say right now?
Yeah, it's it was very I was kind of worried, man. Like I was like this seemed like some deeper issues right here. This didn't seem like okay, we just didn't play well. It seemed like first of all, as coaches, you got to get your team up to play. I know your starting quarterback is out. Now, players got to play at the end of the day. But when your starting quarterback is out, by position, that guy is a leader.
Yep.
So when you see your team leader not playing, a guy who's a projected first round draft pick, such a great leader, as they say. So when you don't see your starter, that can kind of, guys can kind of feel a certain way. Obviously, they didn't have like zero confidence in Kaya. And I think that's again, I'm not being critical of the guy. That's a coaching issue, in my opinion. You gotta make sure those guys trust and believe the plan going into the game. Obviously, as a backup quarterback, he's not as good as a starter. We get it. The starter's a projected first round draft pick. But you got to make sure those guys believe in the plan, and the plan is, structured enough where they believe that the quarterback that's playing can, execute that plan. And the plan is simple enough and easy enough that the quarterback can execute it. I think that was, with the lack of energy and the lack of, just juice from the offense was really alarming. And I spoke about this, the other day, but up front, the offensive line, now some of that is on the quarterback. Quarterbacks are holding on to the ball. Will held on to the ball a few times so far. Kaya held on to the ball. You never ever get sacked on a movement play. Spread outs, nakeds, you don't get sacked on those. That's on the quarterback. You can't allow that to happen. But at the same time, it goes back to what we were saying, I think, last week, where there's a lot of thinking going on, man. Those guys are not playing fast and confident. They aren't. The only guy that plays fast and confident consistently is Chris Rodriguez. He's the only guy that plays fast and confident every single snap. And that's just, maybe he has the easiest job. Usually running backs' jobs, aren't as complicated as everybody else's. But he's the only guy that consistently plays fast and confident, in my opinion. And that's even with Will in the game. Chris Rodriguez is the only guy that consistently plays fast and confident. Everybody else looks like they're thinking a little bit too much, man. When the mind is moving fast, the feet are moving slow. And I say that to everybody, and I really believe that, man. And that's what's going on. But, I guess the bright side is, Will will be back this week. They got to show up. Last year, we saw that Mississippi State game. You don't allow a quarterback to be 90-something% completion percentage on you. That's terrible. You gotta play man zero, whatever you got to do to find a way to get him uncomfortable, throw some incompletions. So they gotta kind of fix that this year against Mississippi State, and it's gonna be a tall task because Mississippi State they're good. I mean, it is what it is. They can play. I wouldn't be shocked if they give Bama a real run for their money this year. I think
with Georgia at home in Starkville. I think so.
Yeah, I mean they are good, but again, when you get your quarterback back, potential first round draft pick, that can change a lot of things. So again, Coach Stoops is a great coach. He knows how to motivate his guys. So I'm sure they'll be playing with their hair on fire on Saturday, or it'll be a big issue in that locker room. Yeah. Speaking from experience.
What about the lack of fast starts? Maybe come at the beginning of the game. Now you got the reverse put them in a bind. You gave them a touchdown this past Saturday.
Yep.
But down at Ole Miss, you get hit in the mouth, down 19-6. At Florida, down 16-7. Trailing against Miami, Ohio, scored 7-0.
Yeah, Northern Illinois, same thing.
So is there, maybe something to the energy or you playing fast, getting off to good starts? I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't seen that. I mean, I guess it's kind of been weird where the two games that the offense did get off to a fast start, it was responding after their defense did. That was the case in the two MAC games, but that's really been a trend for both sides of the ball. I would say is what I guess not as much the defense. The defense's issue right now is they're not playing 4 quarters. I mean, we just saw the same thing in reverse order the last 2 weeks. First half against Ole Miss, specifically the first quarter, awful. Second half, I think like 1 first down and a field goal. I mean, they were awesome. And then last week, you don't blame them at all for giving up the touchdown at the 2-yard line. So yeah, they gave up 7 points, but really knocked those off, and then they just couldn't tackle or stop anything in the second half. So it's been inconsistency there, and then the offense. Yeah, I mean, I think you can throw some of last week's offense out the window with the quarterback play, but you can't throw away the drops and the poor offensive line play. And they definitely need. I mean, if they fall behind in this one, even if they're able to score 21 points or something, it's going to be a tall task to hold Mississippi State to a first down or no points in the second half like they were able to do to Florida and essentially Ole Miss. It's just they have to start faster on both sides of the ball this week to have a shot.
I was talking to, I think was it Van House, who we've talked about trying to get on here, but I know he's got a podcast he does probably about this time to get him. But he was on another podcast Sunday, not his own, but he was a guest, and he talked about, because he played DB, when maybe the offense is a little bit handcuffed going in, where that with Kaya, probably not going to be a lot of points up on the board. It kind of handcuffs you as a defense to where you don't gamble when you normally would. It kind of changes the way they play defense. He wasn't excusing it, but he was kind of saying that would be a reason how they gave up some of the things they don't typically give up this past Saturday. And it makes sense.
What's crazy about that, though, is in the first half, they played great defensively. I mean, they finally had a couple sacks. I mean, Ty Asian came on that safety blitz and forced a fumble. Great play by Trevin Wallace to grab a pick and man coverage. They did those things in the first half, and it just felt like maybe to Van's point, like knowing that the offense wasn't doing anything, the pressure to have to stop them every time got to them in the second half.
After trailing, maybe that's losing it. Oh, now we're down.
I didn't think, at least in the first half, a lack of aggression wasn't the issue. For once, I thought the defensive line was winning at the point of attack, and obviously got a big pick from a linebacker.
And you mentioned that maybe now it's time to look at the offensive coordinator a little bit. You kind of alluded to that, Jalen, with the thinking too much, and maybe it's the grasping of the offense hasn't happened as quick as everybody thought it would. They came in, South Carolina, averaging 0.8 sacks a game. Kentucky was, of course, giving up a lot of sacks. So something's got to give.
Yeah.
And they got 6, and you lump it up into protection however you want to. Maybe Kaya shouldn't have got sacked and shouldn't have ran and tried to outrun guys like in high school and things of that nature. But they got 6 sacks, which is 7 times the amount they had been getting per game, because they hadn't even been getting 1 sack a game all year. They got 6. So you made them look like the 85 Bears from that regard. So what Scangarello said, they're losing one-on-one battles. You lost Kennard and those guys to the NFL, but you still thought there was a little more depth and a little more development there, and it's just maybe not seeing that on the O-line and the protection from. Maybe I'm wrong, but what do y'all think?
Yeah, I mean, with an inexperienced quarterback, I think the kid had maybe a couple snaps his entire college career. 2 snaps. So I remember saying that. So I mean, 3 of those sacks that I remember vividly were just a kid just not really understanding the situation and kind of underestimating the athletes that he's going against. At this level. You're not going to run away from everybody. I consider myself, pretty good speed, and I had to learn that real fast. That some of those defensive ends are just they freak athletes, man. They're big and they're fast. They're going to get you if they get close. So you got to be able to throw the ball away. You can't take sacks on movement concepts, sprint outs, nakeds, keepers, whatever you want to call them. You can't take sacks on those. So if you just do that. That eliminates 2 of them right there from the game, at least. So, but yeah, the issue is the issue, man. There's a coaching error somewhere up front, and you're not going to be the big blue wall every year. You're going to have some years where you're not as good. It happens to everybody. Look at Bama last year. Offensive line was very average in pass protection. And in run blocking. But you look at Kentucky this year, I don't think they're bad still. I just think, there's an error somewhere when it comes to guys being extremely confident in what they're doing. You see guys get beat a lot of times because it looks like they're thinking. They're not playing and reacting. Like offense is, football is a reaction sport. You have to be able to react to what you see. And if you're thinking and trying to react, it's going to slow your feet down. And you get beat by those 5, 4, 3-star athletes up front. They're trained to beat you, So I'm gonna, really kind of make a point that I believe that's what's going on up front is a little bit of thinking, or a lot of thinking. Again, I don't think they're void of talent.
No.
Talent, that's not the issue. So you got to kind of figure out what it is. And I know, and again, it's not being critical to coaches, but I know there's some embarrassment going on with Yenza right now, and Scangarello as well. I just know there is. I mean, you kind of build this big blue wall persona, and it's not really holding up. But positive side is, again, quarterback's coming back. I'm not sure when Flax is coming back. Did y'all hear anything about him?
Should be this week. We'll see.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
So
he was playing much better before the injury, I thought.
yeah. So again, a half a year left. So they can kind of rewrite the script now.
Mm-hmm.
You can rewrite the script. It's a half a year left, and make a run for it at the end of the year. But they got to definitely make some improvements up front. And I think they got to simplify some things on offense. I'm not big into being a simpleton at all, but I'm not big into having my players, having to process too much information pre-snap. And I'm also not big into having, the play clock at 3, 2, and 1 every time before we snap.
Every time.
I think, in my opinion, you allow the defensive coordinator to really impact the game. So the way you take and watch this Tennessee-Alabama game on Saturday, Pete Golden and Nick Saban will be taken out of the game if Tennessee gets their offense going, because you take the D coordinator out of the game. You make the players have to process and make the calls without even looking to the sideline when the tempo is going. I'm not saying Kentucky need to be that fast, but don't allow them to make every check, every time you send a motion, we're still waiting for the ball to snap. You allow the defensive coordinator to really bring his game plan into fruition, right? He kind of gets the chalk last, and you don't want that to happen when you're struggling up front, right? You want things to be simple. You want guys to play fast. So again, that's just my opinion. Obviously, Rich Scangarello has a different mentality he has that NFL type mentality. Everybody wants to chalk last. Well, I'd rather be able to eliminate communication and eliminate and make kids at the end of the day. Some of these kids are 18 years old on the field, 19 years old. Make them make all of the decisions on the field, the defense, and allow my guys to know exactly what we're doing and play extremely fast. In my opinion, to be honest with you, that's what Mike Leach does. Yeah. Mike Leach allow his guys to play fast. If you go watch I got all the film from Mississippi State. I got all the film when he was at Washington State. I even got some film when he was at Kentucky. They run the same concepts over and over and over. They just change the presentation. They change the motion. They change the formation. They change the shift. They snap the ball fast, or their tempo, whatever you want to call it. They just change the presentation, but it's the same exact plays. And Lincoln Riley as well. They're running the same exact plays, and they are always at the top of the list in the country in offense, right? Yeah. So, if you think about that, there's some merit to that. So I just think, they, again, I'm not a simpleton, but you got to simplify things to allow your players to play fast, right? Because at the end of the day, Will Levis is an extremely gifted quarterback, but when he's thinking, he's on the same level as some of these MAC quarterbacks. You know what I'm saying? So allow Will Levis to be who he is. Allow Barryon Brown to be who he is, right? Because when he's thinking, he's the same speed as the guy across from him, even though he's actually faster than that guy. So I just believe in that. And I think it's kind of showing right now. So again, not to be negative, but you got a whole year or a half a year left where they can kind of rewrite the script a little bit.
You mentioned sprint outs and rollouts, and we talked last week how we hadn't seen a lot of that with Levis, but saw a lot of it with Sharon. So is it in the game? Is it in the playbook going forward now, or is it going to be part of the game plan when Will comes back? What's up with that?
Look, this is the week to do it. I mean, I'm glad you brought that up because you look at, the talking point with Mississippi State is their run defense isn't good, and then I see fans on their side, on Mississippi State side, push back and say that's not true. So I went and looked at the numbers, and the quarterback run is killing them. So Jaden Daniels at LSU had 93 yards. Malik Hornsby, the backup at Arkansas, who got the start with KJ Jefferson out, had 111. So they're getting, and Bowling Green's quarterback ran for a decent amount. Forget the numbers. So they get crushed by the quarterback run. When it comes to running backs, they're doing a pretty good job outside of, I think Sanders at Arkansas had like 80 yards, which even for him is a pretty good game for the defense. So if you're going to do it, this is the week, but on a bad toe and all this, money that could be at stake, as much as they should, I just don't see it. I really don't, because, we talk about them holding onto the ball too long, which they are. But I feel like last year, those plays, instead of 1-2, I think Jalen even said this exact thing last week, instead of 1-2 go and take off and get your yardage like Will was able to do so effectively last year, it's 1-2-3 panic. Like that's basically what it's felt like. So I just won't believe we're going to see more quarterback runs till we see it. I mean, obviously with Kaya, it was a different game. And they even had packages for the freshman Destin Wade last week that they were hoping to use the quarterback run, maybe some Wildcat, who knows, and never got to it because the game was out of hand, or, it just, they couldn't mess with all the trickery after what happened on the first play. So it really needs to. Obviously, you would hope that if they are able to roll Levis out, he knows to slide or get out of bounds rather than last year when he took those hits. But I do think it handicaps them a little bit when, he's not running at all.
Is it his right or left foot?
I am not positive on that. I want to say it's his right, but I'm not positive. It's a toe. I can tell you that.
Yeah, and I was, and I know this is kind of getting into the weeds here, but for a quarterback, the right foot, the right big toe plays a big role in generating power.
Yeah, that is what it is, I believe.
So, but yeah, I mean, for him to sit out last week, we know that it's pretty serious for him to sit out a whole game and risk what happened on Saturday actually happening. So, and my brother had turf toe. I had turf toe for a minute, but my brother had it bad, and his lasted for years actually. It's just nagging. It comes back when you tweak it and whatnot. So I'm sure they'll shoot him up, or he'll pop a few pills and ready to go, man.
I'm sure he wanted to go. There's no way that kid, he's so competitive. He did everything he could last week and it didn't work out. But I can tell you that we can't watch practice again in the end, but we see him walking around. There's no boot this week. So he's definitely, unless, like Stu said today on his on the teleconference, unless something goes wrong, he's playing. So at least there's that. But it just feels like this offense could add another dimension if they had him running a little bit, but it's tough. It's tough. That's why these kids don't play the bowl games anymore. There's too much money at stake.
A lot of money at stake, but nowadays, you got the NIL, so maybe it's not as.
That's true. That compensates a bit, especially Will. He's got a marketing deal with everything.
He does. So if had NIL been a thing when you were in Lexington, Jalen, would you have? Is there places you would have gone to, like, is it Paul Miller Ford, or would you went somewhere, a restaurant in Lexington? Would you have went and struck a deal back in Montgomery, Alabama, and done something? What would have been your strategy as far as NIL and marketing yourself and negotiating a deal had you been able to?
Yeah, during the season, super selective, so probably more so just local things, that I had time to do. But if I, honestly, if I had that opportunity, and I talked to my guys a lot, and we were like, man, we missed out because these guys are, you got guys who don't even or aren't really that much of an impact at certain schools who are. I got off the phone with a kid that I coached at Tennessee, and I wish I could. I may tell y'all off air, but hey, more power to them, man. They balling. That's all I'm saying. They are balling, man. And to be a college kid raking in that much money, um, man, I'm not the wild type, but shoot, man, it would have been hard not to, not to get into something. But yeah, they, from if the numbers that I heard are correct, which I'm sure they are.
I think they probably are.
Um, that is crazy, for college kids, But I respect and I applaud Will and Hooker and even Bryce Young, and he's on all these commercials. For them to still have the wherewithal to be locked in, be 19 and 20 and 21. I know Hooker like 28, but to be locked in, and really focused while being so young and and bringing in that type of money. Shout out to them, man, because that takes a lot of maturity. I mean, I know guys who used to get that payroll check and go stupid on the weekends. Shout out to them, man. That does take a lot of maturity. I think people need to really recognize them for that because, being a college kid, you kind of got everything at your fingertips, especially with that type of money in your bank account. So, shout out to them, man.
And that was a criticism too before NIL really got into play. Well, you give them that much money, they're just gonna go wow. Some of the naysayers that didn't want it, that was their argument. And then you just mentioned, Bryce Young's on every Dr. Pepper commercial. He replaced the little brother because he got the mom and dad because he living with mom and dad. And who I think he's on the Heisman House commercials and all that kind of stuff too. So yeah, and it hasn't impacted his performance. And like you said, so to be that young and to be able to have all that on your plate and still, show up and produce like everybody's wanting you to, which is what got you the deal in the first place. Yeah, you gotta tip your cap, man.
Yeah, and from what I hear, those guys are doing some really, really cool things with that money when it comes to their teammates. So they need to be recognized for that too. Because I've heard some stories from inside some programs where some of those guys are cutting up hundreds of thousands of dollars and spread it amongst people. I don't know how they do that. I don't know how that's legal or whatever they're doing to make it legal, but that's commendable.
Yeah, absolutely. So, when we got Mississippi State, we've been previewing that. AG, man, as far as just the cat's paws, what content have you been putting out? Tell everybody what stories you've been writing, what you got in the works, and what you just posted and filed and all that good stuff too, man.
Yeah, it's it's the daily grind of these media sessions 4 days a week and game day. But basketball is so close here, and starting to get ready for that too. So the yearbook, I don't know if it's out yet. I know it's supposed to be printed last week. I'm behind on being in the know, with all the football stuff. But yeah, man, it's been business as usual, and it's obviously a little easier and more fun when the team's playing better, but it is what it is right now. But yeah, I think this week at practice, we were there. Obviously, Monday, Stoops was 16 minutes Monday. He usually goes for a half hour. I thought that was pretty interesting. He was not really interested until I don't blame him, but really wasn't interested in talking much. And then yesterday with Scangrillo was, he took a lot of it. I thought he did a good job touching on a lot of the things we were talking about earlier. With the pace, with the playing better around Kaya, some of the things with the offensive line. And I thought I asked him specifically, and he gave a pretty good answer on some of I think, and this is something we could kind of transition into. I think one of the things that's kind of hampered the offense the last 3 weeks compared to the first 3 weeks of the season is, there weren't many drops at the beginning of the year or those fingertip passes that were near misses. Those are adding up at this point. And I guess you could attribute, especially when it's Barryon and Dane, you can experience that to youth. But, you talk about, I think Genzer, he talked yesterday, and I think, he said, with the false starts, which the penalties have also been a killer, but he said exactly, there's no margin for error in this offense right now. And, it's pretty telling, one, and two, but when you have the preventable things, the drops, the near miss throws, the pre-snap penalties. It just hampers an already, a little bit of a limited offense right now. So that was kind of the theme yesterday. And then defensively, the theme was kind of also something we talked about earlier, just playing 60 minutes. It's been a trend all year long of one really good half and one bad one.
And I'm not trying to go away from where you went to, but going back to the offensive line, I'm not trying to make excuses, but it is what, the third offensive line coach in 3 years.
Yeah.
Schlarman, Wolford, now Yenzer.
Yeah.
He plays a role where your mind is still back with this verbiage or this kind of protection or this kind of scheme. I don't know if everything's kind of running together. That's part of it. It's just
it is interesting. Obviously, Schlarman is a monument. Everything he stood for. Obviously, there wasn't one player who could say anything negative about him and what he built, and still some of the pieces that he handpicked to be a part of this unit are playing a role right now. You don't take anything away from that, but some of the talk this spring, Jeremy Fleck specifically, they didn't love Wolford.
right.
that he was one of those, chew you out coaches. He had no patience. It wasn't, it was all, do your job or get your butt chewed off. That's just how it was. Mm-hmm. And, Yenzer is more of a calming presence. He's more of a player's coach. He's still going to be tough. And I saw him get into it, just a couple open practices during the spring and on fan day. He's a very intense guy, but there's a lot of praise in there, every time. And I guess that was something that was lacking last year. So I do think the offensive line, I think Yenzer's the right guy, at least to coach these guys. But that's where I think it just goes back to, is this scheme too complicated? Is it too, the verbiage too much? It just felt, and I know they were in a pro style offense last year, and there were some more veterans too, especially up front, but I don't know. There just seems to be so much communication that's amiss. One thing I've noticed, a lot of it, I don't know how much they showed on TV, but when Will or last week Kyer, they're going to get the play in, there's a lot of this going on from both the quarterback and the receivers. Like, what are we doing? And that's concerning, man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and real quick, I want to, we talked about Schlarman, man. Just to say something about him, I just one guy I always appreciated, man. I know, we went through some hard times. He got there in 2013, and I only played for him for 1 year, but he was one of those coaches where I just respected, man. He never really, like, if he came to me, it was always something that, a lot of stuff that I could have done better, obviously, but it was never negative. It was never like, to chew you out. It was always to be like, come on, man, let's make sure we do this because these guys or whatever. It was always like respectable. I always respected the guy. He was super respectful. And I had a lot of, just good memories from him because he taught me a lot, as a coach, because he never really got out of himself. He never really got beside himself when there was a lot of times where he could have. He always was a stern but calming voice on the sideline. And that's kind of how I like to model myself is, because at the end of the day, it's a game, right? But there's a game with high stakes. So he was stern. He was, businesslike, but he also understood the student athlete. He felt the temperature of the room. Stoops is really good with that too. They feel the temperature of the room. And you got a lot of coaches who just don't have that ability, or they just don't give a damn enough to do it. But Schlarman always did, and I always appreciate him for that, man. And I've never met a player who didn't like him. Never met one who didn't like. They always respected him. Coach, guys talk in the locker room, and quickly who guys don't like and who they like. Immediately, guys respected and liked Schlarman. But the first word was they respected him as a man, because he stood for something that as a young 18, 19-year-old student athlete that we respected, because he always spoke to you. He was always stern with you, and he respected you first until you gave him a reason to get in your butt. But he always, he was always a stand-up guy, and I appreciate him for that, man, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, A nice tribute there from your personal experiences with him when you were there playing for sure.
Yeah, no doubt.
And just at the end of the day, too, just going back to the team, and I think we've hit it all because AG, we know you got uh, a formal attire party that you got hit. So,
I'm wearing this. You kidding me?
but at the end of the day, we all I think still feel the pieces are in place. Kentucky has all
Oh,
the
yeah.
pieces in place to have, and they're still on pace for a good season. The schedule gets toughened up. 10-2 still on the table, but for the optimism was because all the pieces were in place. The line, the tight ends, the backs. A first round draft pick at QB, the veteran defense. All these things were in place. But just offensively and special teams, we just still haven't seen
Oh,
anything fall. Everything hasn't clicked yet. There's been a lot of issues. Another missed kick, had a punt block by Beamer Jr., which
I know.
his
Beamer
dad
ball.
was known for that, and then they got a block, and uh, media day, Mark Stoops, he kind of opened himself up by saying the dude wears the goofy glasses and dances around. If you gonna say that, you need to beat him.
Yeah.
You don't, as soon as he hit that locker room, he was gonna get them glasses out, and now they can say if he gets it rolling down there for them. Well, it all started back when we went on the road and won at Kentucky.
He's already starting
And
that
over a
because,
ranked team. This is what got the ball rolling. They
yeah.
could use that in recruiting, and then first signature win, blah 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 blah. And so you gotta hear that now. So
Yeah, there's no doubt. And I mean, remember last year, Dane Key was visiting South Carolina and Kentucky goes in and beats them. And that, Vince Mayer FaceTimes Key from the lot. I mean, this is a revenge game for South Carolina and they got it, man. I mean,
yeah,
one of the benchmarks or one of the doors that Mark Stoops knocked down was he passed South Carolina and Missouri in the division in Florida now. I mean, South Carolina up until the 2010 game, 2011, one of those years, had a 10 or 11 game winning streak over Kentucky. I mean, obviously the early Spurrier days, the Gamecocks were dominating that series, and then Kentucky took complete control, really until Saturday night. So yeah, that was a tough one. But like going back to your first point, that's why this game, man, it's everything. This will decide whether you can go at least 8-4, maybe get to 9-3. I mean, I don't know about 10-2 with both Georgia and Tennessee, but at least have another 9-3 regular season and give yourself a shot at 10 in a bowl game, and then or even 8-4 with how it started, with the slow offensive play and these last two the Ole Miss preventable loss and then the stinker at South Carolina. I still think, is that what you wanted going into this year? No. Is it acceptable? Yeah. But man, if you lose this one, you have that bad taste in your mouth going into a bye week, and then you have to, watch Tennessee. Who knows if they beat Bama? I mean, you have to watch that. They're obviously, they got UT Martin, so they're gonna obviously Kentucky will have full rest, but you'd have to imagine Tennessee will be at least half rest because they're not gonna have to play the whole game against UT Martin, and then it becomes just a daunting task in Knoxville, and then you're staring at 4-4. It's like, man, 7-5 would feel like the max at that point. So I just think this game, not that it's going to be easy, because it definitely is not, and I don't know if I'd pick Kentucky to win it, but it just feels like if they lose this is a game whether you could either turn your season back around and still get close to the goals that you set to start the year and at least have a good taste in your mouth, or you're staring at, man, like 7-5, 6-6, and everyone's questioning you again. If this was, has Stoops peaked, you're going to get all those crazy questions that drive you nuts.
yeah, yep. So we shall see. We shall see. I think we hit all the points we was trying to hit in this one. And if you got an event that you got to go to and you want to be on time, you want to get you a Lots of Rain watch. Aaron got a party to go to, lotsofrain.com. If it's a formal party, if you're going to go casual, it doesn't matter. Get your La Terrain watch on your wrist. If you're looking fly, either way, LaTerrain.com. Premium watches and accessories. Been around since 2018. Dave and Ben have got you. Go to the site. Hit them with a question in the chat. They'll get back to you and answer your question where you know what you're purchasing. You know the style of watch. You know the accessories. They got everything there for men and women. You can quit just looking at your phone to see what time it is. Get yourself a La Terrain watch. It's very affordable, and it's a wonderful product. You can tell them you heard about them by listening to the Believe in Kentucky podcast, which is available on Believe.com and wherever you get your podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Spreaker, Castbox, all those places on the audio side. You got TuneIn, Believe Football. You got the Believe Radio. You can Believe in Kentucky on both of those on the TuneIn app. And there's also Believe TV coming as well. Send this video in. I believe they'll have us up on Believe TV. You go to sport.tv and there's a Believe channel. So all those shows, Believe in Bengals, Believe in Ravens, Believe in Wisconsin, whatever team you want is there. Hopefully you'll see Believe Kentucky. We'll have our little slot where you can go in there and watch this episode. So all kind of good stuff. We're proud to be a part of the network and bring you UK content each and every week. We enjoy doing it. Hope y'all enjoy listening. Have fun doing this episode, y'all, man. AG, hope you have a great, splendid, spectacular evening at the appearance you got to make.
Quick.
Jay Witt, man, hope you have a good evening as well. And
Appreciate you, man.
We always appreciate bringing y'all this podcast. And so we hope to be talking about Kentucky being 5-1 this week. It didn't happen. They're 4-2.
Get this thing back on track.
So we hope to be talking about things getting back on track after this game against Mississippi State this weekend. We shall see. Y'all stay tuned. When we drop that next episode, y'all tune in and listen. Subscribe, and you get this episode and all the other ones coming straight to your device. And we'll be here next week to talk about all of it. So for Jalen and Aaron, my name is Vinny. We'll be back next week on Believe in Kentucky. Everybody take care now.